I made an arrangement for Nylon-String for the song Master of Puppets. In this video, I'll tell you a little bit about my thought processes and how I came up with the versions for Nylon-String that I did. First off, I'll give you a couple caveats. So if you just listen to the performance, you notice that it's not the same as the original in terms of the number of times I play each riff. So I just kind of cut it down just for, I didn't want it to get old, basically. I think on that original, like, he's got all the distortion and like there's just this like wall of sound is great. But when you have it just on a solo guitar like this, there's a risk that it can be too repetitive if you play each riff the same number of times as they do on that original recording. And the other thing is too, like, I kept everything in 4/4 for the most part. Like, the chorus changes up a little bit. The chorus is a different story, but especially for that part where it's like in the verse where it's famously in some completely strange type signature. I think it's like 21/32 or something like that, 21/32 time signature. I didn't bother with that. I just kept it in 4/4. But if you're playing this arrangement, if you happen to learn this and like it enough to learn it and play it along with the track, it's really easy to adapt and just play with the track. It's no big deal. Yeah, so the basic ground rule I had was I wanted to be as faithful to the original as I could in terms of the notes I played, but where I make it adaptable to Nylon-String is I change where I play those notes on the guitar. So the easiest, illustration is like if he's like chugging or whatever on the open E. In the original, I'm saying like, okay, I'm going to play E eighth notes, but I might play it something like this. So those are all E, like the same note, but I'm just playing them at a different place in the guitar. I could play E up here or wherever, I happen to be at that particular point. I do break that rule, but I think 98-99% it's the same notes as the original riffs. And in the rest of the video, I'll let you know like where and why I had to choose a different note. Okay, so let's go through it a little bit. The first part is, I'm calling that the pre-intro. It's really simple. It's just a walk down from D to D flat to C in the context of this E minor chord. And so I hit the whole chord and then just the three notes at a time. There. That's the easy part. The main riff itself that you hear is basically just a big chromatic walk down, like all the way through an octave, like on one string. It sounds something like. Right? That's kind of it in a nutshell, like what they're doing with the melody of it. When I first started working with this, I was playing it down here, and I was just like those kind of open E's that he plays in between. I was just hitting like something like that. I felt the E kind of got a little bit repetitive, and so I said, okay, I want like a moving bass line, and I chose the notes E and B and D. So it's going to sound kind of like an E minor 7 chord. So in both of those parts, it goes E, B, D, and then E, B here on the 7th fret, and open D like that, and where I keep those chromatic walk downs in there as well. And I also noticed that I have this kind of G in each of those sections. Like that open string kind of like is a pedal point to ground both of these ideas, so you have one thing that repeats that's not changing around all the time. I guess the thing that I could talk about that I like the most about this riff that's really cool is like, and in general, like why it can be interesting to break these like metal riffs down into something that rings out more on an acoustic. He goes, and then he goes. So when I first started messing with this, I figured that out, and I thought, wow, that's what a cool sound right there. So as it turns out, that's a minor major 7 chord. It's like C sharp, minor major 7, which is going to be like the C sharp, and then the flat third, so E, and then this is going to be like B sharp in this case, or C, which is going to be the major 7. It's that sound, and it also has that kind of D in there, so like a flat 9 kind of ringing on top of it. So I mean, like people think of these metal riffs as just being like, oh, just an excuse to chug really fast and who cares what you play, but when you kind of break them down, it's some really interesting kind of harmony ideas that you wouldn't otherwise think of. So I just thought I'd point that out. So the intro riff 2 is probably my favorite one in the song in the original, because it's just so like it has such a nice groove to it, and then when you play it fast, it kind of keeps that groove. Unfortunately, it loses a bit of that, I feel like, on the nylon string version, but it's still cool and fun to play. But it's a bit tricky to play. There's a lot of different kind of right hand stuff that's going on at the same time, and there's also like a hammer on there, and then a slide, and then you're getting two strings at the same time, and then you have to move up. Like, those are just kind of rolls with the right hand, and then but this one is really tricky. Here. Wide space to play this, and then you're having to move the thumb up. That's the way I played it anyway. Yeah, I guess I'm not really going to talk too much about right hand stuff. In the video, you can kind of figure out on your own what works best for you, I think. But that riff for me was quite tricky to get everything in time and rhythm with all the different articulation techniques that are in here, and I couldn't really figure out a different way to make it work without including these techniques. It's a really similar idea in terms of that moving melody. So the melody, he's just going like, so that's kind of the basic idea with the melody he's doing on the original riff, and I'm just doing it over here. And then I also have that moving bass line still. So he's still going, was it E to B and then to D. But on the original, he not only goes from like E, he goes to F. So I'm doing like the same thing, E to F, and then B to F, and then D to F. And the F is right here. So where the G was kind of the pedal tone in the previous example in riff 1, this second intro riff, this F becomes the pedal. So there's a lot of kind of crazy, funny stuff going on in this one. It's not as easy to play on the guitar as that original one because you don't have the same access to, I guess, you don't have F as an open string, that's the problem. I mean, without an alternate tuning, you don't. So that's kind of the story behind 2A, intro riff 2A, then 2B is just a simpler version. You do something like that, and then you go back into 2A. Yeah, that's it. Next is a little transition to get to the verse. And basically, it's just this tritone that he's really highlighting. I'm playing it like that. It's that one. It's funny. It doesn't really fit into like a C7 chord. It doesn't really fit into an F#7. Like neither of those chords sound good in that context. But just that tritone by itself, that like what E to B flat. It sounds evil, I guess. That's what they were going for. Then we're in the verse. It's a pretty chuggy riff on the original. Something like that. I'm just doing like, treating it like it's a E minor chord. So like, that first part is just notes out of E minor, right? And then I'm just translating like note for note, just up top, like up here. Like that, and then it goes, the B part of that riff is the same thing, you just move it up to F sharp, so I use a bar. It's the same idea. And then he transitions into the pre-chorus, and all he does on the original, he just hits like a eighth note with a B power chord, like that. And I'm treating that, I know he's leading into like an E minor chord, so I can play the the B7 and treat that like a secondary dominant to lead into the E minor. So I'm just kind of, and then, so now we're in the pre-chorus. And like, I think this is my favorite one, the way it turned out on the acoustic, I thought was the coolest out of all these riffs. I love that like little, that slide there to go from E to F sharp, because it kind of gives that E minor add 9 sound, kind of that Pink Floyd chord. I also make a big change on this one. In the original, he goes something like that, and so he starts out kind of on that B for, I just play it as a C major chord like that though. Just because I just like the way it sounds better. I couldn't get it to sound cool, like putting the B here and working with like the B minor voicings, then moving to C just sounded too jarring to me, so I just repeat the C twice, and I like the way it sounds. Last thing to say about this pre-chorus part 2 is I have no idea what he does on the original, but I'm just playing like, just because it's convenient to play, basically. What? It's kind of thing where I wasn't super worried about accuracy of this part. The effect is just the speed of it, just these little triplet things come up real quick. And so these were the easiest kind of pull off to an open string, and I think it kind of conveys the same effect without it necessarily being the exact same thing that he plays on the original. So the last part of this thing that I made was the chorus, and I also thought this sounded really cool, but I kind of deviate from my previous patterns quite a bit on this one. I guess it's nice because it's the end of it, and like I was saying, there is a danger of this getting a bit monotonous, just playing kind of like finger picking the whole time, so I just start strumming here. And the other big difference is I play the vocal line on the high E string, so like, Master of Puppets, I'm pulling your strings like that. The other thing, like again, that sounds, you don't expect it to sound cool when you play it on a nylon string or on an acoustic guitar, like translating it from the electric. The electric sounds kind of simple because he's kind of playing these, he's like kind of holding these chords out for a long time. But then if you start to add the thirds and think about the secondary dominants, it sounds really cool, in my opinion. So the first secondary dominant that I'm talking about was twisting your mind, smashing your dreams. And this is an A7 that I'm playing because I know this A7 is going to lead. This A7 is a secondary dominant. It's going to lead into the D major. Blinded by me, you can't see a thing. The other secondary dominant that sounds good, it's kind of really close by. It's the D, and then the C, and then the B7 here. Blinded by me, you can't see a thing. And then the E minor, just call my name, because I'll hear you. That part right there, that master part, is just an E minor. And then I'm making an E major, but also adding the F. So it's like there's no flat 7 there. It's not a dominant chord. It's just an E major with like a flat 9. It's a weird sound. But it's like, you know, it's that half step sound anyway. So that's the chorus. I haven't written down the notation for this yet. I'm not going to bother with all the extra bars of 2/4 and getting the rhythm just right. I'll just put down the basic ideas, and if you listen to the track, you'll be able to figure it out and play it in time if you want to. So that's kind of it for this one. Hopefully you got something out of it. At least out of the tab anyway. And see you in the next one.